Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to a special event today called Beyond Your Energy Body, Experiencing an Initiation into Your Sacred Anatomy. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you here today, learning right alongside with you from a remarkable spiritual teacher, energy healer, and really a pioneer of consciousness. Her name is Desda Zuckerman, and we discovered Desda really by first asking people that I knew, like, who is it that has influenced you the most? Who's really offering the next leading edge of work? And I like to use this as a little way to go down the rabbit hole and find the teachers out there who aren't necessarily like already well known, but are the hidden gems who have like the next level of information that we need to learn. And that's what led us to Desda. And it turns out she's a fascinating woman with a history you're going to love, and a body of work that is truly groundbreaking on so many levels, that really builds upon a lot of what we've learned about our energy system, but takes it to a whole nother level, connecting it with our soul and higher intentions. A lot of stuff that I'm just discovering myself. So I know you're in for a treat. She's developed this body of work for many decades now and is really ready to bring it out to the larger world. So we're really graced and blessed to be with you. So thank you for joining us, Desda.
Thank you, Stephen. And boy, am I ready. I can hardly wait to get going.
Let's start with you and what it is that you are. What is the journey that brought you to this point? I think you have a fascinating journey, and people will love hearing about it.
Well, you know, I was born a very young child, and I started at the beginning. And when I was little, I saw elves and fairies, and little angels would appear, and I used to lay on the dirt in the backyard and feel the heartbeat of the earth. And I had this kind of magical quality. I was very isolated. I lived way out in the country. And so I used to run and run and run between the avocado trees in Southern California and have these experiences of feeling like I was flying. And so that was my early childhood. And it sort of changed as I got older and my family began to travel, and we went all around the whole Mexican peninsula down into Baja, and also into the straight down into southern Mexico, and in the very early 60s. And I was, again, very isolated. And so I didn't realize that other people didn't see what I see. And I see incredibly beautiful images and energies and blobs and swirls and moving, spinning wheels and all kinds of things around people. But in those early days, I actually just saw this kind of soft, fairy-like, gentle, non-threatening, very pretty energy around people, places, and things. I remember looking at the stars as a little girl out in the backyard where we lived in northern San Diego County, and looking up at this incredibly clear sky and looking at the frequencies around the stars. I could see energies around the stars and energy throughout the entire system that I was just observing. So as I got older, I asked questions about, well, what is that? And, you know, I was told that space is a void. There's nothing there. And I kept saying, no, there's something there because I see this. So that happened. And then when I was about 14, I flew out of a car and went up in the air and came down, landed on my head. And when I opened my eyes, instead of seeing the soft, pale lights around people, I saw this brilliant, active, intense day glow almost, except it was iridescent and colors that you never see anywhere there around people, places, and things. It took me almost 2 years to kind of figure out where people were again. I had difficulty seeing. I had difficulty looking at the printed page. I had difficulty looking at people's faces because there was so much activity in front of them. But I got really good really fast at what I call dissecting. So I would look at somebody and then I would close my eyes and I would look in the inner, because my inner eye was open as just from birth. And so then I would look again, and then I would look in the inner, and then I would sort of ask for the thing I was focusing on to come out, and then it would just pop forward. So really early, like when I'm in my mid-teens, I started drawing pictures and writing about what I saw, because I had this really analytical mind. And so I wanted to organize it and I wanted to understand it. And then I discovered really as time passed that nobody saw what I saw. And that was depressing, you know. Yeah. But after I got my eyes checked, I do wear glasses. That's only because I'm over 60. But the thing that I saw, that I started to really understand, was not just a bunch of movement. It was an anatomy. And I began to put these things together because I would watch how people would react emotionally. So when somebody would get upset, they would get wildly active. And there'd be all these dark colors that would swirl. And I would, you know, stand back. When they were really excited and happy, there was another kind of movement and colors. When they were sad and depressed, there was another kind of darker energy, a color that would be more muted. And so I started tracking emotions first. And then I started tracking ideas. And slowly over time, I realized that what I was looking at was almost like a living brain around us. That there was so much information in this energy structure that I saw that maybe I could mine it, and maybe we could do something with it, and maybe we could help people. So I kept going. I kept pursuing this. And I became clear, I guess it was the late 60s, I heard about the higher self. You know, it was a very early concept. And I remember I did psychic readings for about 17 years. And I used to feel this golden light above me. And the other person would get a golden light above them. And then we would tap into each other, and our golden lights would somehow talk to each other, and there would be this information that I could give them. Now, I was a pretty good psychic reader, but it wasn't what I really wanted to do because I didn't really want to tell people about themselves. I wanted to help people understand how they could help themselves, how they could really turn on, flip the switch and really take control over this huge energy structure. Because it's really big. It's like 20 feet out, 20 feet to the left, 20 feet to the right, 20 feet above, 20 feet below. And we're suspended in this. Even in airplanes, there are these structures. There's these wild little bumps under airplanes of everybody's structures popping along. I mean, I just see all this stuff. So as I started to draw it, to paint it, you know, and work on my drawing so I could draw better, so I could really get the ideas across to others, I really started to develop procedures I could do with it. And I started to map everything and understand how the soul had been turned into this structure and how that had happened, how we're co-creative, inspired beings. We stand shoulder to shoulder with Divine Source, creating this structure, this amazing energy body that in fact has a quality of eternal life. It doesn't seem to die. I've not seen one die yet.
Really? So when somebody dies, you see the whole structure just migrate away from the body?
Yeah, and babies, before they're born, the subtle anatomy doesn't enter the physical body of the mother until the very, very end, you know, when she feels like a house and can't move. That's probably why. But the baby is like Garfield on the edge of the structure of the mother. Just stuck there. And there's this beautiful silver cord that goes down into the bio body in the belly of the mom, delivering all this information about the soul's journey, the soul's purpose, and why this being absolutely needs a physical body.
Beautiful. It'd be amazing to be able to see what you see. And part of what's cool is you have taken the time to really, you know, create a whole mapping of this. You have so many cool images, like just this alone speaks to so much. And it's like, you know, I've never seen images like this where the human part of the anatomy is so small. And as you said, it goes out 20 feet and further sometimes. Yeah.
And what you're looking at here is the electromagnetic field, which is a whole system in my cosmology of the human energy structure. There are 7 systems, and this is one of them. Now, remember I was talking about those golden lights? Guess what those turned out to be? Those turned out to be the higher self. except there were 4 of them, not just one. And they're floating 20 feet up at the very top. In fact, part of them are kind of outside of the structure in the universal, kind of like the prow of a ship. You know, they're just out there. And it turns out that those 4 different aspects of the authentic self, or the authentic nature, those 4 different aspects are physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, and they help us become who we are. In fact, they are who we are.
In many ways, this is like an architecture of our soul, of our
Yes.
deepest identity that we're just not aware of in our typical incarnated form, unless we happen to have opened our sight. Do you find that people are able to, over time, as you train with them, like open up more of a direct perception of this?
Yes. Not only are people able to completely open up and start being able to see over time as they work with me, just sort of being around me, they start doing it. Because I don't train them to be clairvoyant. I just train them to be, you know? That's a faster way. So they begin to see, but most of all, the students that stay with me, you know, they learn how to sense. So one of the things that I've gotten really good at is teaching people how to sense into the sacred anatomy and how to sense different parts of it, how to have an actual experience of the sacred anatomy.
So when you say sense, are you kind of expanding your awareness to, like you're kind of aware that, okay, Desda said there's supposed to be X about here, and then you kind of expand your awareness out to that level and see what you discover, or how does that work?
Well, I've actually have people I train them how to extend their light fingers. Almost everybody can do that. It's not a big stretch. And then I tell them where in their anatomy they need to place them. And then I describe what it is that they're looking for. And then I ask them what they feel.
Okay.
And so people have a direct experience of their sacred anatomy, but they also can activate their sacred anatomy. They can sort of turn it on. And when they turn it on, they start producing a kind of a relational reactivity so that the sacred anatomy is actually holding them differently.
That's interesting, the holding container, because it is so much wider. So in a way, it's like if we're focusing more just on what's close to the body, it's like you don't have that holding container in a way. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'd love just for people's clarity to understand more about so most people have probably heard about the chakras or the meridians from Chinese medicine, and so maybe just give a little bit of an overview of how did the sacred anatomy levels that you're talking about relate to these systems people might be more familiar with.
Well, it's definitely like your grandma's chakra, you know. I have mapped the chakra. What I mean by that is I've extra-physiologically mapped it so that I've looked deeply at how it actually works. And everything that we know about chakras that have been written by wonderful people who've done great work is applicable. This is just an expanded look at it. It's an anatomical look at it, which it broadens the whole thing. And then, of course, there's significance and meaning as to what's involved in creating a chakra, for example. In my system, there are 13 chakras, 7 in the physical body and then 6 that are not. So it's a holistic look at the entire structure, using the entire structure to produce the result of the chakra, which in my system is kind of like a cardiovascular system, the blended energy system. So meridians are fascinating because they're more a part of the harmonizing network, which is like a frequency system that could be equated to a chemical system, sort of like neurotransmitters and hormones and that kind of thing. But it's frequency-based. And so meridians have these tones that they emit as they run through the physical body. Well, guess what? We also have meridians that run off the physical body and into the subtle anatomy. And then you said bodies. Well, I call them layers because we have one body. And guess what? The physical body is a layer.
That's a layer.
It's a layer inside of this larger body. There are 8 layers. So
I know you probably, it may be a little much to go into all of them right now, but maybe just like, if you could just touch upon what these layers are and what function they serve. So just give us a little bit of kind of a broad orientation.
Well, you know I can, so. So the biolayer is amazing because the biolayer is, we know what it does, but what we don't think about are the subtle implications of the biolayer, which is filled with a thing called subtle light matrix, which creates a light body, which people do talk about the light body, but the light body is inside the physicality, and every part of our physical body is vibrating at a sacred rate. It's not just physical, it's also subtle. And then we have the emotional layer. And the emotional layer is the place that sort of holds the foundational emotion content. In other words, the first emotions that your soul felt at the time of its birth, which might have been 1,000,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago. We don't know. It's pretty old. We know that. So one of the things that it does too is also it sets an emotional tone for this lifetime. And then there's the primal layer. The primal layer is kind of green and it's primordial. I like to think of it as the dragon's egg is buried there, and it's a mysterious layer. It's where instinct resides. It's also where we have access to DNA and where we have access to legacy and tribe and that kind of thing. And then there's the beautiful mental layer. I love the mental layer. It's got 3 strata, and those strata are dedicated to the organization of beliefs and attitudes and concepts, but also it has at the center great acceptance strata, and the acceptance strata is the seat of the divine feminine in our structure. And then there's the chaos strata. Woo, everybody loves the chaos strata because it's where genius just comes from chaos.
I'm not sure everybody loves the chaos strata.
Oh, they do. When they learn it, they do. And then after that, there's the cognitive layer, and the cognitive layer has 4 different strata, and the most important and exciting part is the point of transmutation, where divine ideas are implanted and then they begin to come to material reality. And then there's the spiritual layer with 6 different strata, guides and guardians, angels, elementals, different kind of access points to our unseen helpers, teachers, guides, guardians, and friends. And then there's the etheric layer. The etheric layer is fascinating. I used to call it the Himalayan mountain layer because it's got all these jagged edges and it's way the heck out. So by now we're like 15 or 20 feet out from the physicality. And we've got this Himalayan mountain range that runs all around us. It's kind of an orange color. And the thing about it is it carries the soul's entire history. It's like a mini Akashic record. In fact, it may very well be the Akashic records. And so it's this wonderful place where you can like tap in and you can find extraordinary details about someone's life and their soul's evolution. And then beyond that is the soul layer. And the soul layer is the one you see here on the beautiful graphic that's all rainbow swirls. And that's like a fuel tank. And it's at the very, very edge. It's also...
So these are all just layers of this. These are all strata of the soul layer. So this is just one of those of the layers you're talking about.
Well, the soul layer, which is the one at the edge with the swirls,
gotcha.
That's the soul layer. So no, we have 8 layers, and each one is distinct and magical in its capacity. And 7 systems, and each system has so much to offer.
Well, it sort of like feels like you're kind of like a tour guide taking us into like a foreign land that most of us haven't been to, and it's sort of like, whoa, it sounds really cool.
We're down the Amazon.
I wonder if this might be a good time to show a few pictures just to kind of anchor what you just said. Or
okay.
I know you've got so many beautiful pictures. If you want to show a few to kind of give a sense for how those layers fit together.
I would love to do that. Okay, so the first thing we do is we start with the core. And the core is at the very center of who and what we are. We could think of it as the totality. We could think of it as the all. And it is, in fact, the divine within us. It can never be broken, hurt, injured. Nothing will ever happen to the core. And it is the source of all this energy that makes us. Then there's there's the channel which crosses the core. And that's, in some ways, the sacred witness. So we have the expressing, creative, and then we have the witnessing, receiving. So you see these little guys up here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the edge of the sacred anatomy. And the edge is like totally magical because we can actually place our awareness at the edge and interface and interact with the entire world, the cosmos, from the edge of our sacred anatomy. And we don't pick up anybody else's stuff. We have a completely safe way to work and be in the world. And we can go through really difficult things at the edge with more poise and grace. So it's a really extraordinary skill that I kind of discovered along the way. In the mid-'80s, I discovered that.
So share a little bit, you have the 4 little bubbles there.
There they are.
Share a little bit more about those, since I know we wanted to bring that forward, because it's important for folks to understand.
Aren't they cute?
They're cute.
They're really cute.
I mean, the whole thing looks like, for some reason, it makes it I'm like, Dr. Seuss must have been tapping into these there, because it has like this kind of like swirly, cool, like, you know.
Totally. Do you know I grew up across the street from him?
No way.
Yeah, in La Jolla.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We trick-or-treated at his house.
He got hit with a partial download that you got.
There was something in the water. Okay, so right here, this is the physical aspect, and it's really inspired by this blue stream that's coming in, and that's the function current.
Uh-huh.
And then we have 2 in the center. This one is the emotional, and this one is the psychological. And they're really driven or led by the purpose current, which is the red current. And then way over on this side is the wisdom current, this golden current, and it creates and produces a spiritual aspect. So the 4 aspects come right out of the triple current stream that is flowing downward and spiraling like crazy.
Now, I think you've mentioned that this connects to our purpose for this lifetime, right? These 4, and we could share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, the thing about the soul's purpose is that it's why and how we're created. So we don't just come up with the soul's purpose for this life. Mm-hmm. We have a soul's purpose that is an eternal purpose. It's our whole reason for being. It's why we exist at all. And the whole job of the 4 aspects is to bring that soul's purpose forward with everything that they do. So as they're creating our sacred anatomy, they're implementing soul's purpose. So the subtle currents that are running through you, the big elimination wheels that are releasing debris, everything is made out of purposeful action.
So in some ways it sounds like, so because this is that outermost layer, this is like everything else is created to fulfill the purpose, right? So is that accurate? So we can go on to the next image here.
So this is the soul layer.
Uh-huh.
And the soul layer is the rainbow body you've heard about from the Tibetans.
Yes.
And they're right. There's a rainbow body. And with most of us, it looks relatively disorganized. I've only seen an organized rainbow body once in my life. I got to see the Tara Tulka in the last years of his life. I just walked around a corner at a beautiful house right here near Stinson Beach, and he was sitting in full lotus meditating. I walked around the corner and I saw him, and all of these colors were organized into just full color rainbow radiating out from the center of his body. Just this gorgeous radiant light in a rainbow shape.
That's an interesting validation of that whole lineage if they're doing practices to activate that, and then you can see the evidence.
You bet. So the soul layer is made of swirling colored light. And these lights emanate out of the core that we showed earlier. They split off, and what's happening there is we individuate. Thank you, Carl Jung. It's a good term for what's happening here, because we separate out from our physical, manifest, real sacred anatomy to create new energy constantly, every moment of every day. We are the constant perpetual motion machine. But there we are. You can see how there's this incredible energy at the center where the core and the channel meet. We call that the Grand Cross. And it's this really sacred place at the very center of your body.
Mm-hmm. And it's like kind of more with like what we'd think of third or second or third chakra kind of area?
Well, it's not on a chakra.
It's deeper?
It's below the solar plexus and above the dantian chakra.
Okay.
It's like centrally placed.
Wow.
Yeah. And amazingly enough, this channel can move. It actually lifts up and can lift up to the heart. And I only have seen that in pictures of indigenous cultures in the National Geographic.
So even a picture in a magazine, you can still perceive the energy.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yes, and you know what? I can see pictures of people who are long dead, like Abraham Lincoln. I can see what his structure looked like, and Robert E. Lee, and people like that. I can see the energy structures around
It opens
them.
up a whole new understanding of history and the world and engagement. It's amazing. Yeah.
You won't believe it. Someday I'd really like to actually paint them, but I haven't gotten around to that yet.
How does this begin to apply to somebody who's just wanting to heal and shift something in their life? So it's like how do you work with all these different layers in a way that gets them to where they want to go?
Well, that's the best question, really, because none of this stuff is worth a darn if you can't use it. Mm-hmm. So I've really worked hard on figuring out different ways that we can access parts of ourselves. And one of the things that I've come to is probably the best way to help yourself get out of the pain and the suffering and the emotional turmoil of life is to begin a relationship with the 4 aspects of your authentic self. And I have just so happened to have some wonderful meditations that will take you into this very deep spiritual terrain. And for those of you who meditate, it's a little bit like Dzogchen meditation, in that there are images, except that I've taken it a little further and it's interactive. So you ask questions and you write down the responses and you have a dialogue.
Great.
Well, but you're deeply in meditation.
You want to give like a little taster of something right now that people might be able to apply as a practice?
Well, I'll tell you what I would really love to do is I have an initiation that I do. It's really an invitation into a relationship with the sacred anatomy. Because one of the things I discovered, was like, well, why don't more people know about this? And why wasn't it mapped before? And how come I'm the only one that sees this? I asked all those questions. And one of the things that became clear was it's very polite. It's not a bully. It won't make you have a relationship with it. Yeah. It must be invited. It's a critical thing. It wants to be wanted, and it wants to be worked with. So I'd love to do that initiation if we could.
Let's do it.
So this is an empowerment exercise. And that's what's so exciting about it, is that you really are taking the power of the potential of who you are into your own hands when you speak these words. Basically, we're requesting permission of the sacred anatomy. So the way you do it is you speak out loud from your heart. Out loud is important. And I'll tell you why. The sacred anatomy responds to your voice, your own unique frequency. So it's important for you to say these words out loud. You want to feel the emotions as you express them. You want to let yourself feel whatever comes up for you and say the words. Just imagine for one moment that magic can happen and that you can have that magic happen inside you. You don't have anything to lose anyway, right? So just go for it. Now, I want you to speak out loud, slowly, and with feeling. Hello, beloved energy structure. I'm so happy to meet you. I'm very grateful for your hard work to support me all these years. And for your love, care, and kindness in my every moment of life. I would like to request permission of you for a conscious relationship to begin right now. I'm excited to work with you and to learn from your great wisdom. I know consciously interacting with you will change the state of my experience of living and will make my soul happy. I hope to recover some part of my innocence and my ability to relate to other realms of creation by beginning this awakened relationship with you. Now stop speaking and simply feel into what you're like now. Notice any changes, even really subtle shifts. Everything counts. That's not only new changes or things you cannot explain. No, notice any changes, any sensations, no matter how vague. Feel for anything that might give you a sensate knowledge of your subtle self.
Well, thank you for that. I love the sweetness of it too. It's like reconnecting with an old friend.
Yeah.
It's not like a heroic kind of thing. It's just like, oh, let's get back into connection.
Well, one of the things that I learned is that the sacred anatomy not only won't boss you around, but it will fall in love with you if you allow it. Bringing these things to conscious awareness can happen just from looking at the drawings that I've made. We've had all kinds of reports. You know, I published a book in 2012 with 354 pages. It's an encyclopedia, really, of the sacred anatomy. And right after the publication, I got these emails from people who'd fallen asleep with the book on their faces or on their chest. And one gal had gone through a mastectomy and had fallen asleep with the book on her chest right after the mastectomy, and her scar had been very red and kind of hard. After she woke up, she said that her scar had gone back to the normal color. So like things like that, just like wild, magical things.
Well, we can just call it magical, but there's a logic to that, right? So it sounds like when you open to these different levels of the structure, then they're essentially able to more positively benefit the kind of lower levels, the embodiment levels, right?
They really can. And so when we begin to speak to the sacred anatomy and begin to have a relationship with it in a gentle, non-confrontive, not bossy way, but as and also not as a supplicant, but as a friend.
Yeah, that's what I really took away. I said that's why it's like meeting an old friend. It's not like, oh please, it's like it's like you're like, hey, let's reconnect with that. let's do this together in a sweet way, which is a great way. It's like there's a kind of also a way that I'm perceiving that some of our spiritual paradigms have been so kind of stuck with the kind of authoritarian structure of consciousness or something, rather than there's a sweetness and intimacy the way you talk about it that's really quite welcoming.
Well, one of the things is I'm not interested in dogma. I'm not interested in dogmatic work. I'm not interested in being in that groove. So because it's not religion or belief system, it's just anatomy. It's just anatomy. And it's just a relationship with your conscious self. So as we come to consciousness and wholeness in relationship with the sacred, we can start to step into our potential as true transformative leaders. And we can really make a difference from this point of view. We can, in fact, lift the frequency of the species.
Amen. That's
Let's
what
go.
that's what we're in the business of doing. So I love that you're bringing that forward.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to. There's one other area that we said we would talk about some, and I think it's a good time to talk about that. Is just, how does this work also relate to sort of trauma and emotional healing work? It's like things that kind of get stuck in our system in different way. How can this be really this knowledge and activation of sacred anatomy applied to the deeper healing that a lot of people are looking for?
Well, I have about 500 procedures that I've developed over
Only
the
500?
years. Yeah, about 500. Kept it small. And we can work really specifically. Because I've mapped the anatomy, we can work really exactly. So sometimes when something lodges, in an exact location, then it tells us exactly what the issue really is. So we can get underneath it. It's kind of like, when you have a backache, upper back, well, what are you carrying on your back there, dude, If you start having a constricted throat, what are you afraid to say? So those kinds of things, but applied to the sacred anatomy. So we can do that. But I think really one of the most exciting things that I've studied and figured out a little bit about is that the subtle anatomy has a voice. It has a voice. It has an offering to make. And don't we want to hear what that is, for crying out loud? If our soul anatomy has got a voice, don't we want to hear it? Don't we want to talk to it? And so that's the exercises that I've developed to work with the 4 aspects of the authentic self. And that's one of the ways we can heal some of the deepest trauma and some of the most stuck emotional stuff and, issues where your life is spinning out of control. Working with those 4 aspects can transform your experience of living.
And just so everybody gets really clear, remind us of the 4 aspects again. So we
I talked about it early as a golden light that was way, way up there. Well, it is. It's about 20 feet up above your head, and there are these 4 golden globes, each one dedicated to an entire aspect that has its own seat of authority in our structure, really driving and offering so many options to us.
You gave the metaphor before of this as sort of like a board of directors that are helping to kind of guide the whole system, if you will.
Yeah, board of directors, the original primordial authors of the soul. And the truth of the matter is that you're also on the board of directors. Your personality, your ego. Okay, so maybe it's only going to live for 120 years, but it's this little offering that's being made, and it's the culmination in this lifetime of the 4 aspects work. And so it's given great honor, a seat at the table, and in fact, maybe even as the chairman of the board. So there's
chairwoman.
Or chairwoman, yes, chairperson. So we have a lot to learn from them, and we can also offer a lot to them. So it's an exchange.
Very cool. Well, one thing we didn't get to it, but I don't know if it completely relates, but I did want to connect this. You also had an unusual history in the rock and roll world, and since I know it, we've talked to people might think, "Wow, she's just been out in this like far out land her whole life," but you've actually been in some very, very public settings and this work relates to how we show up in the world too. And I want you to share a little bit about that history and how this relates to how we can show up in a way that's truly helpful in our public life too.
Okay, so when I was younger, in my 20s, I played a lot of bars, and my husband and I played the guitar, and I sang, and we had bands, and this was in the 70s. So bars were filled with people who were on all kinds of drugs and drunk out of their minds. And I was never a big drinker, and I didn't do drugs. So I felt like I had to do something about this, because I wanted to be in an environment that was a little healthier feeling, and also the smoke was so annoying. And so I started to learn how to use light to sort of sequester myself from the smoke, and also to help control the energetic in the room. So the best story I've got here is one of the best. Actually, I had a lot of good ones, but this one is a good one. So it was, I don't know, it was like about 76, and we were playing a place in San Francisco that was frequented by motorcycle gangs. So the motorcycle gangs, we were hired because we didn't sound at all like any of the music the motorcycle gangs would like. Because they would come
somewhat
in.
Risky proposition.
Somewhat risky proposition. But they would come in and break the place up, and the guy had this big, really expensive $10,000 mirror above the bar, and he didn't want them breaking it. So this guy had a huge mirror above the bar worth a lot of money, and they used to come in and throw chairs through the mirror over the bar. And he didn't like that at all, so of course he hired us. We were a kind of, we're more of a lounge band, and we weren't going to bring in the rowdies, supposedly. Well, one night, it sounded like there was a 747 landing out on Irwin, and into the bar come about 50 motorcycle guys, gang members, wearing their colors, with their old ladies on their arms. And they came in, one guy had like chains around it, like big, like chains around his neck. And they had guns and they had knives and they were pretty stoned. So they came into the bar, and the bartender picks up his, he takes his baseball bat out, and he's got it, we can see it. Our band is playing, and they come in and they sit down, and the energy is so intense that anybody in the club, and everybody left. They just got up, picked their purses up, and out the door. And so all we had was about 60 folks from a popular motorcycle gang. And I decided that I wasn't going to allow any violence in the space. The waitress left. She took her tray and walked out the back door. All we had was the bartender behind the bar and the 5 members of our band on the stage. So I brought in this tremendous amount of white light to clean the place out. And I saw this huge ball of white come in, and it just blew right out the back door. And then I brought in a golden light, and I covered everybody with the golden light. These guys were so polite. They tipped the bartender. They bussed their own drinks. They asked politely for songs. They tipped us. They were the most polite patrons that had ever darkened the door. And I do mean darkened.
Wow. Well, what a great story.
Isn't that awesome?
And I think most people may not run into needing to calm down the biker gang, but I think the principle applies to wherever you happen to have a tougher situation. We may just need to send you to Washington, D.C. as well.
Oh, honey, put me on the next plane.
So anyway, we could have fun with you all day. I do want to spend some time talking about your upcoming program.
Oh, good.
Because I know that you are so excited.
I am.
To bring out not just a little bit of inspiration, which this is totally inspiring and has some real dazzle of like, wow, opening new portals of possibility, but to really immerse people in this work and transmit it and to open it across the world, since it's been kind of gestated in this smaller community of advanced healers and psychics and trained students for several decades now. So we're very excited to bring this out to the world and for people to really transform through it and as you said, as we get the sacred anatomy lit up in a good way, it's going to translate into how we show up in the world and clear out the old traumas, open up to higher possibilities, and really radiate this new energy and quality of being that the world needs. So the program that we're going to be talking about with Desda is called Beyond Your Energy Body, open to the 4 dynamic aspects of your sacred anatomy. So it's really building upon the work we've shared here today, but going in depth with going into each layer and each strata and really understanding the practices and how does this become a lived reality versus something that's kind of like an interesting tour of possibilities into a lived reality for folks. So you can find the program at beyondyourenergybody.com. That's the URL is beyondyourenergybody.com. It's a 7-week program. Initially, we hope that we can keep building on this, but it's the 7 weeks. It will at least give you some of the most important essential building blocks for really working with this. So I'd love for you to share in your own words, what are you excited to transmit? How are people going to grow through this? And then give us a tour of the modules.
Well, I had to think really hard about how to begin, because I've been teaching relatively advanced healers for quite some time, and practitioners and people who are sort of inundated in my work. And I realized I really wanted to bring this to a larger audience. And so what would be the best way to get in the door? And I decided that it was through the 4 aspects, because they truly are the underwriters of our soul. And so I developed this 7-module training for people to take. It's actually a personal development workshop, a way for people to dig into their own soul's purpose and healing.
Fantastic. Well, let's see. Give us some highlights of what's coming. And again, you can find all the details at beyondyourenergybody.com.
Okay, so the first module, starting in October, is Traveling the Rainbow Bridge, Coming Home to You. And that's an image that we're going to use, but it's also an empowerment. It's a deep meditative experience where we're literally going to walk across the rainbow bridge into the inner realms. We're going to build that mystical bridge between reason and the unseen world. We're going to invite the sacred into physical reality and shift your relationship with who you are. And there'll be, in every single module, there'll be sensing exercises to sense the sacred anatomy, and there'll be a deep meditation in each one with a different setting, a different focus. So you talked earlier about hidden jewels. Well, this is like the many facets of the jewel, of the direction of the sacred anatomy. And so we're going to explore all these different facets. So that module will really be about setting the stage and getting ready. And then the next module, the second module, is called Your Personal Board of Directors, the 4 aspects of your mythic and authentic self. And so it's actually this walk into a relationship with the 4 aspects, meeting them, seeing their faces, having an experience of what they are, who they are, what they look like, what gender they are, what their name is. It's a deep experience, and it opens the door into using the sacred anatomy to understand the relationship between your physical self and your subtle self. The third module is called Manifesting Your Ground of Being, anchoring your life with the physical aspect. And that's a journey into the physical aspect, learning the sacred anatomy, but instead of just sort of the obvious, like, oh, well, my physical aspect must be about my physical body. It's not. It's not. It's about how we function as materialized energetic and how that happens in us. So if you have parts of yourself that you don't think have somehow materialized, like you haven't brought into being, this is a way to do that. So that module is really going to give you an ability to touch the divine potential for rejuvenation. Because one of the things we want to really look at in the physical aspect is dying and growing older. You know? I mean, we got to look at it. We got to be with it. And so this is a way to do it. This is an interesting portal. And then the fourth module is called Mapping the Heart of Your Inner Landscape, the Wisdom of Your Emotional Aspect. We talk about emotional maturity, but can you imagine if you really could touch the emotional maturity of your 100,000-year-old soul? Like, what would that feel like? And how would that impact your ability to feel your own emotions? Oh, well, maybe some of that impatience might just chill out. We own the full emotional breadth and depth of life as a divine blessing in this module. And then the next one is the moment before creation, the brilliance of your psychological aspect. So one of the things that I spent quite a bit of time thinking about, meditating about, praying about, I've been meditating for years, and it kept coming to me the moment before the thought occurs. What is that moment? That's the pure potential. That's the undiscovered realm. That's the window into possibility. And that is the true mental nature of the universe. So we're going to explore that and talk to our mental aspect and look at ways that we can step into the greater mind. Now, that's something I want to talk about because the greater mind is amazing. And it's located in the nervous system of the sacred anatomy called the template. And in this class, in this module, module 5, I'm going to work with people to step into their greater mind and to have an actual experience of what it feels like to be Albert Einstein. Touch your genius. Wow, why not, right? Why not? Why not? So it's a location in the structure. There's an actual place where insight occurs, where brilliance thrives. The 6th module is called Igniting Your Spiritual Fire, Occupy Your Spiritual Aspect. And I do mean occupy. Like, let's occupy this thing. What is the deal? We walk around trying to be spiritual, hoping to be spiritual, trying to find our spirituality. Let's occupy that spiritual aspect. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to learn to telegraph into the sacred anatomy and have an experience of literally landing in spirit, walking in spirit. My feeling is if we can't have a sensate, real, integrated experience with the subtle, why is it there? So that's what I've worked a lot on. I found early on with my apprentice groups that, they really didn't learn all that well unless they felt it. So we're going to be feeling a lot. And then the 7th module, how is the 4 aspects mojo? The mojo, yeah. How your relationship with them will benefit your life. So we're going to build on all the previous meditations because each class has got a meditation. Each class has got an empowerment exercise. Each class has got an affirmation. And I even did a little video on affirmations to help people understand what I mean when I say, let's do an affirmation, what it's about. Anyway, so one of the most exciting things about this is that we're going to unleash this hidden mojo of the 4 aspects into your life. And we're going to start seeing some amazing stuff. I'm super excited because I think that everybody in the class's life is just going to be so transformed by this because I've seen it over and over again. I've done over 10,000 sessions using my work, core individuation. I have taught hundreds and hundreds of people to use the edge of their sacred anatomy to sense the world and to track what's going on in their life by moving through their sacred anatomy. And this is a big platform where I'm going to get to tell lots of people about it. So I'm really happy and really, I want to help people feel like they're allowed to express more and more authentically every day of their lives.
It's really clear that you do that as well. I love that you end with mojo as well. So we kind of bring a little Austin Powers here to complement the Dr. Seuss and make it fun. I think it's great to be transmitting such deep spiritual wisdom, but in a container that is authentic and fun and real. Well, I know people are in for a real treat to take this program, so we're super excited. I'll share a little bit more about it to you. So again, the program is called Beyond Your Energy Body. You can find the details at beyondyourenergybody.com. It's going to be 7 90-minute class sessions. It allows you to do Q&A, have engagement. You're going to get videos of every session. You're going to get audios. You're going to get word-for-word transcripts. You also have an online community in Facebook that will really allow you to kind of go deeper with the practices and the sharings. It's a very important part of being able to have a community that's exploring new terrain together. It's sort of like exploring a new continent almost by doing this material. So the more you're in community, the more you're going to learn. So the course is going to be on Wednesdays at 5 Pacific time. It's going to start on October 3rd. And we have some really great bonuses that are detailed in more detail on the page. So I'll just hit a few highlights. So first of all, we have a PDF teaching from Desda called the Insights Meditation Journal. So this is, again, provide a context so you can kind of chronicle and deepen and integrate the lessons as you open to this different kinds of sensing and feeling of your sacred anatomy. We're also going to have a video teaching from Desda on the correct and ethical way to benefit from affirmations. Affirmations are something that has a lot of pop appeal, but the way you teach them, I think, is quite a bit deeper. You want to share a little bit about the difference of a more typical affirmation practice?
One of the things that's really, really important for people when they're doing affirmations is to be fully embodied. Mm-hmm. You can't pray away or wish away your problems. You have to actually walk into them. And so I invite people into an embodied state, and then we work from there. It's important too, of course, it's always been made, the point has always been made about affirmations that you want to speak positive language. But you also want to look at what your intention is behind every single word you say. Not just in affirmations, but in life.
That's good practice for life, for
it
sure.
Is.
So that's going to have a lot of applications beyond just affirmations.
It will indeed.
We also have another bonus. You can see more detail on the page at beyondyourenergybody.com. It's a video teaching from Desda called Importance of a Spiritual Practice.
Well, yeah. One of the things people use spiritual practice for is to kind of escape from their doldrums, from their life that's not working for them. So they use spiritual practice to kind of get out of their own way. Mm-hmm. I would flip that on its head, and I would suggest that spiritual practice is the way to go deep into the spaciousness within us. And that, in fact, without that, it's very difficult to move into a rapport and relationship with the sacred anatomy, because you actually need to open the spaciousness of your spirit so that you have an emptiness in you, a quiet in you to receive, to absorb. If your life isn't working for you and your spiritual practice isn't either, this might be a way that you can find your way out of the rocky seas.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like a really illuminating way to shift our whole orientation with our spiritual practice. There's one extra bonus is just available until midnight tonight. We like to do this to encourage you to go to the page at beyondyourenergybody.com, give it a read, tune in. And if you're enjoying yourself, if you're finding this illuminating, which I'm sure you are, there's really no risk to go for it today, and you get the extra benefit if you sign up by midnight tonight. Called a Japanese rake, which is, I was like, what is that all about? It's a video from Desda. I understand this is sort of a subtle clearing practice that people can do.
It's goofy and funny and easy, and it works. And yeah, it's a subtle clearing practice that doesn't require any understanding of the structure at all.
So we're sort of like the Zen garden, and we're getting our consciousness raked. Is that the idea?
That's the idea.
Cool. So I encourage you to go to beyondyourenergybody.com. You'll get all the details on the 7-week program. This is really groundbreaking stuff, never revealed outside of a very small circle around Desda in the past. So I guarantee you're going to get a lot of new insights and information and really mind and soul expanding work. So we've kept the investment very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $109, or you save about 10% when you pay in full at $297. So I know you're going to be super excited. You're so excited for this course. I know you're going to be very engaged at all levels, answering questions. This is going to be a really great opportunity to dive deep with somebody who is stepping out, who's got this pioneering, unprecedented body of work, and really, if you have any sort of background in healing and transformation, which I know a lot of our folks do, this is going to be a big plus to whatever you've studied before and give you a new holding, a new context, and new possibilities for your own growth and awakening, but also in the ways that you can work with others as well. So this has been a super illuminating, a lot of fun hour, and I'm really taking away the biker story. But I would encourage you to just speak straight to the folks who are considering joining. If there's anything still on your heart and mind, it's a warm invitation to join you for the program.
I just want to invite you to please consider the possibility that your heart, your mind, your body, and your spirit could benefit from understanding how the sacred anatomy is not only expanding you, but allowing you to really bring forth your offering in the world. We need each person to be elevated, to be lifted up into their own pure truth. We need every one of you. This class is a small step to really helping you bring your own work into the world, whatever that is. Come on, come play with us.
Well, thank you for that wonderful, warm invitation. And it's so clear that this is the work is the reason you incarnated, and you're offering it with such a generosity of spirit. So thank you, Desda, for this hour. Thank you all for joining us. I know this has been fun and illuminating, and you are warmly invited to take the next step with Beyond Your Energy Body. And you can do so at beyondyourenergybody.com. And when you sign up by midnight tonight, you get the extra special bonus teaching. So thank you. Many blessings.
Thank you, Stephen.
Many blessings to all you. Look forward to more.